दिया तो फिर क्या करने का? तो कोई इतना समझता नहीं, तो खाने का मेरे को इतना जानकारी नहीं।
आप ही लाएंगे सर.
Hello, hello. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I have muted myself, but I can't hear anything.
Yeah, here is the same.
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know whom am I talking to, but
Yeah, so I think host needs to unmute themselves. So
yes, the host needs to unmute themselves. I'm trying to reach one of them, but nobody's answering.
hey, ISS, can you unmute yourself, because we are trying to figure out what is happening.
Hey everyone, it seems they're trying to set things up. They haven't started yet, so probably they'll come online in a couple of minutes.
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Hi. So we are now going to begin the session. We apologize for the delay. The technical things actually took some time for us. So
Can you unmute yourself? We are trying to figure out what is happening.
They're trying to set things up.
So, on behalf of the Institute of Spanish Studies, I welcome our guest, Mr. Vinay Bhushan, who has been a former consultant at Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi, and he has his MPhil in Latin American Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and he is an expert of Latin American matters. So, without any further delay, I invite him to start his lecture to all of us. And thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us. And there is no further delay. We will begin the session now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Ranjit.
Rajesh sir, sorry, Ranjit sir, one request. I think there is echo coming from there.
Yes.
So if one of the system which is logged in the same hall can be muted, I mean all the other systems, the institute can be muted because there is echo happening. And if we can keep only the presenting laptop in on, I mean, audio on mode, speaker on mode.
Hello.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes. Now there's no echo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and apologies for the inconveniences that we have caused you. And we are late by half an hour, so we should begin it without any further delay. Thank you so much. You can begin.
Sorry.
You can begin. That is not for you. So that is for us. That is the stream is for us, not for you.
Right. Hola. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Ranjit Kumar, my esteemed senior from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, where we all studied in a very big campus in the good old days. Now, of course, he's here now, running this Institute of Spanish Studies. Wonderful institution. Very rare to find a quality institution like this outside Delhi circles. It's good that you have Spanish studies spreading across to different parts of India without having to go to Delhi. So it's my pleasure to be here as your guest to speak on Chile's constitutional evolution. As Ranjit was saying, I did my MPhil in American Studies from Jawaharlal University. I subsequently worked as a consultant with the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi, where I tracked Latin America extensively over 3 years. It's good to be here and engaging in this conversation about Chile. A very interesting country with a unique geography and now undergoing, now in special times, undergoing a very unique experience not seen in this century, at least 21st century. So I've titled this presentation Viaje Serpenteante, which I understand in Spanish. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I must say that this was useful. The Viaje Serpenteante, meaning the meandering journey, never a straight line. It's always left, right, top, bottom. The meandering journey of Chile's constitutional evolution. A lot of countries go through this evolution in their constitutional order. Some countries don't, like India, we have had one, and then we've managed with that order for 75 years. But why did Chile go through what it went through? What makes it special? What are the lessons for India? That's what I'm trying to understand. After speaking a little about Chile, we understand this whole constitutional process that's gone in a meandering way. And then finally, we see how its relevant was in India. Why should Indians understand this? Why should Indians sit through a presentation? What should be their takeaway? So that's my objective today. So we are a Serpenteante. So let's understand this meandering journey of Chile's constitutional evolution. But of course, we begin with looking at Chile and its basins. 7.5 lakh square kilometers, not a very large country. It's the geography that makes it very interesting. Beach hugging, very slender from top to bottom. Population about 1.8 crores. Now, how much is that? Bengaluru urban, Bengaluru rural, Ramanagara, Kolar, and Chikballapur districts. I'm sure all that adds up to 1.82 crores. That's how small the population is. But very, very well developed. Their per capita income is about $17,000 US. That means if you are an average Chilean, you're 5 times richer than an average Indian. You see, small country, faraway country, you are a Chilean and you are 5 times richer than an average Indian. That's how well developed the country is. And it's ranked very high in HDI, the Human Development Indices. You see the various aspects of development used to judge a country. Chile ranks very high. But unfortunately, it's not a very equal society. The fruits of development and wealth are not spread out equally. There is a clear boundary wall, unfortunately. This inequality has contributed to the crisis in Chile. So that's what will come later, which is why it's very important to emphasize at the first stage that Chile is highly unequal, so that you better understand why Chile went through all that turmoil later on. So this is the flag of Chile, simple and elegant, red, blue, and white. This, as you can see, is the map of Chile, slender country. Chile, broadly, the topmost portion of Chile is desert. That's where all the mining industries are. We keep hearing of Chile as a mining powerhouse. It's in the northern portion of Chile, the slender map that you can see. The middle portion is warm climatic condition. It has the capital city Santiago, along with the larger two cities, Valparaiso and Concepcion. This is dense urban conglomeration, service industry, manufacturing industry. And then the bottom third of Chile is closer to Antarctica. So it's cold, not heavily populated, not densely populated. The current president of Chile hails from this portion of Chile. So you have a very interesting mix, geographical, agroclimatic, and economic base accordingly. Chile is in ownership of several Pacific islands, the Easter Island being the most famous of all. You can see that in the extreme left, all the islands in the Pacific Ocean. Neighboring countries are all Spanish speaking again, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina. Neighborhood, it's in a Spanish speaking neighborhood. So understanding Chile better also makes us understand South America a little better. All of them were colonies of Spain, of course, as you all know, but developed in different ways after independence. Now, so that's Chile at a glance. Now, the demographics of Chile. Demographics means the population character. What is the demographics of Utenhali or Bengaluru city? You know, demographics can be religion-wise, caste-wise, occupation-wise, so that you get a brief picture of this locality. Likewise, what is the demographics of Chile? Overwhelmingly white and mestizo. Mestizos are those Chileans who have descended from the white Europeans mixing, intermarrying with the indigenous people, the locals who were there before European colonization, right? So they're called mestizos. So mestizo Chileans and purebred white Chileans from Europe together constitute 90% of the population. They are a vast majority. They hold all the economic wealth, social status. So mestizo plus white. Next, you have the Mapuche, Aymara, and other indigenous groups. So these are local native tribal people who lived in South America before the Europeans came there in the 15th century. So they are indigenous, just like the Aboriginals are indigenous to Australia, Maori indigenous to New Zealand. So you have indigenous people everywhere, people who were the first to arrive before everybody else arrived. So the story of Chile is similar. It was a patchwork of indigenous people. Europeans came, Spain came and colonized, displaced the indigenous people, and subsequently, after a long period of colonization, you have multi-ethnic democratic republics that emerged, like Argentina, like Chile, like Paraguay. So Europe mixing with the locals and come and giving us a new world, as it's called. North and South America put together is called the New World. It's the same story everywhere from Canada to Chile. But Chile's precise makeup is this: mestizo plus white 90%, the indigenous people 10%. All this again very important to understand. We spoke of inequality. To what levels? This is the population figures. So 10%, but small 10% is small minority in any country, but very, very determined to get justice. And so their efforts are finally paying off. This, just as an aside, is the Rapa Nui statues on Easter Island in the Pacific Ocean. This is the world famous. This is a world famous location. This is equivalent to the Taj Mahal in Chile. So if you're in Chile, you have to see this. That's how famous it is. It's a very important landmark of Chile. Defines Chile in some sense. It was built by the ancestors of the indigenous people. Right. So now we've understood Chile, the map, the demographics, the economy. Now let's quickly understand what a constitution is. Once we understand Chile and what a constitution is, we can start talking about Chile's constitution. So this is just for those who may want to refresh their legal and constitutional memory. Constitution simply is a rule book. It's a book that identifies, that gives an identity to a people. After giving identity to a people, it says they will be governed like this. These are the do's and don'ts. These are the rights. These are the powers of government. These are things that they should be focusing on. So it's a rule book, which all organizations have, all religions have. Holy books, they have the status of holy books. It's what is written in the holy book, we say. For socio-political purposes, the constitution becomes like a holy book, right? So it is through a constitution that you judge a country. What is written there? What is not written? How have they written and then evolved? So you can judge a country through its constitution, which is what I am trying to do now. I'm trying to judge Chile's evolution through its various constitutions. Finally, we come to the point of understanding why they are trying to change their current constitution. And there's a story for it in that for everyone. This is the image of the Constitution of India. This is just to place some context, prepare all the raw materials, and then you come to the main point. So, Constitution of India, preamble to the Constitution. What does this book do? It defines us as a people. We are so vast, we are so large. We got independence after hundreds of years of colonization. So finally, we had to start by saying, who are we? We define ourselves, and then we go about doing everything else. So it's more than just a rule book. It gives you identity. It gives you purpose. So constitutions are more than just rule books. And therefore, the order, that's why it's called the constitutional order. Order is how you define things using that book. So the constitution leading to a particular order, the constitutional order. In India, was set in motion in 1950, and 75 years later, we can proudly claim that the same constitutional order thrives. There's been no great challenge or damage to it. With change, with some amendments and some hiccups, we've moved on. Americans have put up with the constitutional order for more than 200 years. And the changes have reflected the changes in society. It was born out of slavery. Now you have had a black man in the White House. So, but the Constitution has held through and allowed that evolution to take place. So without the constitutional evolution, there would not be a black man in the White House, President Barack Obama. So it makes things happen, defines you, gives you a purpose, and then lets you go through. So Constitution is very important in the modern world. They're important for our personal life. We rely on religious holy books. We rely on teachings of philosophers, institutions, universities. They all have constitutions, but by different names: charter, convention. If you start your own NGO, which I did a couple of years ago, we had the MOA and Articles of Association. That was like the constitution for the NGO. So these founding documents are always there. So we've understood Chile. We have briefly understood constitution and what it means, why it's important. Now let's come to Chile's constitutional flavors. I call it constitutional flavors because the flavors change from time to time and leads to progress. Sometimes there are setbacks, but then you come back and there is progress again. Now, Chile began with the 1833 constitution. Look how old Chile is. In India, we all talk in 90s, 1947, 1950, 1920, but they are 100 years ahead of us, having achieved independence from Spain much early on. So 1833 constitution was the first that Chile put together. Now, if you want to understand Chile, there are many ways of doing it. One way is look at the constitution. That's what we are doing. Now, the 1833 constitution was strongly conservative. What does conservative mean? It imposed a very narrow ideology on the entire country. Very little rights for minorities, hardly any rights for indigenous people, autocratic, not fully democratic, very autocratic in nature. Women's rights, not very evolved, but you could say the whole world was backward on that front in the 19th century. But nevertheless, Chile, so it was conservative. It was not liberal progressive. It was conservative. Where a strong autocratic leadership of only the elite ruled over and over again. Not that they had, a broad-based governance structure. The Roman Catholic Church in Chile, which is the majority religion, had a strong say in governance. Church was dominating, overwhelmingly present in every aspect of Chilean life. They dictated policies, they dictated personal life, they dictated a lot of things. So no separation. And that meant if one religious group is allowed to dominate, what does that mean? Automatically the other groups get cancelled out. The non-Catholic denominations in Christianity also got cancelled out in Chile. So, so conservative, autocratic, very religious-minded, no broad-based society, no broad-based economy, economic power in a small group. This is not how a society should be. But in 1883, that's how Chile started. We understand this by looking at the constitution. But of course, even though liberals could not overthrow this constitution or change or significantly change it, in small steps they managed to bring about changes, which eventually culminated in the 1925 constitution, which was much more democratic in nature. Elections, there was the greater degree of franchise, the church and state was separated, right? So the power of the Roman Catholic Church on all aspects of Chilean life was curtailed. Okay, freedom of religion is there, but not to be dominated by that. You see, keep it at a distance. So separation of church and government. More economic rights for minorities. If you are a minority, indigenous, tribal in Chile, you could aspire to become richer faster under this constitution. It gave you some more rights than your ancestors got. So the 1925 constitution was a step forward. But then in 1973, an important event took place. This man, General Augusto Pinochet, he is now universally reviled for what he did to Chileans in 1973. He was the army chief who overthrew the democratically elected government. Now, this has happened in many countries. We have seen it in our own Myanmar and Pakistan, our own neighborhood. Chile had seen coups before this. But why this was special was Pinochet's coup in 1973 was special, or at least special in terms of an academic study, in terms of its brutality, in terms of the changes it brought to the society, very fundamentally. Chile ended up going back. A lot of progress was made on some issues. It ended up stepping back. Like 4 steps forward, 3.5 steps backward. So that's not how it should be. And you can't have a democratically elected president, Salvador Allende. He was the world's first Marxist elected democratically, universal franchise as to the presidency of any country. And he met a very sorrow end. It's a very gruesome tale. Not that I will go into in great detail, but you don't want to see your presidential palace bombed by the Air Force. You don't want to see your president take a gun and shoot himself within his own office, because that stain will stay with your country forever. Even after it becomes right wing and then left wing and then right wing and all of that happens for several generations, you have to bear the stain of it, right? Just think of the analogies. The Indian Air Force bombing Rashtrapati Bhavan. We think it's not possible at all, but that happened in Chile. Just think of Karnataka police storming Vidhan Sabha and creating havoc. The police and the military doing this, and the top leadership killing themselves. It's something that you have to do, pursue it in your own interest, because that's how gruesome this was. This was part of a larger trend in South America, where a lot of democratically elected governments fell to military dictatorships. And these military dictatorships had the backing of the CIA, the American intelligence agency. So this was not how things were meant to be done in the 1970s. Post Second World War, democracy was supposed to flourish. The United Nations was there. The world comes together for international peace and security. And your president is committing suicide inside his office. Because not because an enemy state bombed you, your own air force is bombing you. So if this had happened in the 20s and 30s, which indeed happened, that was past, but we were supposed to have moved on. But this was a huge step backwards. It still sends shockwaves around the world to think that such a gruesome thing could happen. This led to a new constitution being put forth in 1980, the 1980 constitution. This was a brainchild of General Augusto Pinochet. It was a huge step backwards. All the progress made were cancelled out. In one line, if I have to tell you how the 1980 constitution was, it cancelled out all the progress made. Private capital in 1980, private capital became stronger because they got constitutional sanctity. The private sector became stronger and more entrenched. More conservative leaning policies came through. Liberal policies aimed at the emancipation of women and indigenous people were blocked. So if you're a woman in Chile, a religious woman in Chile, you had a problem with Pinochet because he's not allowing you to progress. You see, that's conservatism at its ugliest. So a lot of progress made, step back, democracy, unnecessary troubles took place within the society. You had thousands and thousands of people killed, human rights violations. It's a black spot in the country. No, so this constitution is valid even today. The 1980 constitution, even today is valid. So why suddenly do the Chileans want to change it? One, because of its history, the way it was brought about by General Augusto Pinochet, not the way to bring about constitutions, by bombing your own presidential palace. But so that stain of the way it emerged, that is the first reason for Chileans wanting to move forward. And the other reason is, of course, more local. You had inequality in Chile, unemployment, privatization, cost of living crisis, all these economic and social problems, ethnic minorities not feeling happy in the way Chile is being run, not enough economic rights, not enough social rights. So all of this came together and exploded in protests in Chile in October 2019. Right? So in October 2019, this was not just protest, this was what can be called civil unrest. This is on par with civil war. Chile descended into civil war in 2019. And then COVID came and made things even more worse. So what happened was, in order to crush these protests, the Chilean president had to take tough measures. His name was Sebastián Piñera, a right-winger, billionaire industrialist. He was the president of Chile at that time, 1920, when the protests first broke out. There was an outbreak of protests, and subsequently when COVID came, there was a right-wing president in office. The crushing of these protests resulted in large-scale human rights violations, 30 deaths with 2,500 injured. Now, all this might seem small. I mean, 30 people in a protest, if they were killed in Bengaluru, I mean, God forbid, but if they were to happen in Bengaluru, you wouldn't ask for a new constitution. But what happened in Chile was that the protests were widespread. I showed you the map of Chile: north, south, central, south, cities, towns, villages, all sectors of the economy except the very rich, the private capital. So, this is just 1.8 crore people, mind you. If you're the chief minister of a state and you have only Bengaluru urban, Bengaluru rural, Ramanagara district, Kolar and Chikballapur, just these 5 districts. If these districts saw massive protests, a lot of people killed, complete disruption of transport, no rail, no road, no flights cannot take off in and off, international trade severely affected, reputation severely affected, lower rungs of your police and military and bureaucracy are sympathizing with the protesters. So as president or as chief minister, in my example, if you're the chief minister and can't even trust your police to tackle this protest, you know that something is very, very bad, right? There's been a fundamental breakdown. This is not some students protesting over fees, and a lot of things have come together. To use an Indian term, bad karma. Chile's bad karma all accumulated. The constitution, the protests, the economy, the social issues, and so shaken was Chile at a fundamental level that an entirely new constitution was felt necessary. Chileans felt that they could not go forward the way they had come this far, and there were a lot of things that had to change. This is the photo of protests in Chile. You can see the Spanish poster, Nueva Constitución Ahora, which I think means new constitution now. We need a new constitution, new way of doing things. It can't go on like it has so far. So we have had 3 constitutions, 1833, 1925, 1980. Let's go in for a new one. So this changes in constitution explains the changes in Chilean society, right? Now, march towards a new constitution. What did they do? In October 2020, 78% of Chileans, that's a massive majority, Chileans came out and said, let's have a new constitution. Okay, first step done. Majority of Chileans want a new constitution. So what do you do next? You then have another vote. It's called referendum. 2021, there was another referendum. Decide the body that will write the new constitution. Who will write it? What are the rules for writing? What should they keep in mind? That has to be voted on separately. 2021, they vote again to decide the body. The body is called Constituent Convention. In India, we call it the Constituent Assembly, of which Dr. Ambedkar was an important member, and therefore he was important to drafting the constitution. This Constituent Assembly in Chile came to be called the Constituent Convention. So who will debate, think, draft the new constitution? So in this convention, there was gender parity. A lot of men, approximately equal number of women, transgender, sexual minorities, and indigenous people. All of them found representation. This was not just a white man's body, white man's exercise. Every aspect of Chile's demographics was represented. Everybody sits down and in the 21st century, in a very civil way, discusses and debates a new constitution. The nickname for this exercise was smartphone constitution, because this happened in 2021. People are now greatly engaged. You get news on your smartphone. You put stuff on social media platform, your opinions on, and that has an impact on the members of the Constituent Convention. This is not like 70 years ago. You did not know what's happening inside, and you could not influence them enough. But the nickname for this exercise was smartphone constitution, because people are now updated. Every day, every debate was transparent, and people could, through their smartphone, express their opinion. So the people could get the convention representatives could get a sense of what the people are thinking. You see, this was not some opaque, it's very transparent, thanks to the smartphone primarily. So it came to be called the smartphone constitution, which gives you a hint about how advanced this process is. That is what is required. You not just need a new constitution, but you need the process leading to the constitution to be transparent, to be advanced. You see, otherwise it becomes problematic. Unfortunately, the twist, the climax, the anti-climax, so to speak, was that 62% of Chileans in 2022 rejected the final draft that came out. Why? They protested, they demanded, they voted for a new constitution, they chose a convention. But why did they ultimately reject what was finally put on the table? It's shocking. That means they wanted to remain with Augusto Pinochet's constitution, the constitution that came out of bombing the presidential palace. Why did Chileans do it? They're smart people, high development, high levels of HDI, very progressive, liberal-minded people playing a positive role in the neighborhood stability. Why would they first ask for a new constitution, vote for the people, and then reject the draft? This was a setback. This was a shocking anti-climax. But what the Chilean president is doing now is that he said the process will happen again. We will go take a second attempt. We will not stop here until we get a brand new constitution. That's a good announcement. The process continues, but let's understand why it was rejected. Fracaso means failure. In Spanish, this ended up being a fracaso because of politics. You see, politics comes in everywhere. As I mentioned earlier, when the protests took place, the president was a right-winger. President Sebastián Piñera, right-wing billionaire president. Protests happened, pandemic happened, economy was affected. Now things have moved on. And now the current president is Gabriel Boric, who is left-winger. Right? So from right-winger, we now have a left-winger as president. The left wing now dominates Chilean society. So in the Constituent Convention, majority turned out to be left-wingers. All the left-wing parties, independents with left-wing views, left-wing connected businessmen, left-connected business, all of them got elected to the Constituent Convention. That's good because they were chosen by the people. You can't complain. Nevertheless, when you're drafting something as important as you're not drafting a law here. You're drafting a new constitution. This is not some law that can be changed later. Constitution is very fundamental. When you need more broad-based constituent convention, the people themselves failed to give that broad-based constituent convention. It was broad-based in terms of gender. Indigenous people were there. Yes, in that sense, it was broad-based, but political leanings ended up being overwhelmingly left-wing because they were voting against the right wing that was in power. Sebastian Pinera, he was right-winger, so there was a protest vote against him. So all the people who draft the constitution turned out to be left-wing leaning. So the draft they produced was not legitimate. Legitimacy is very important, even in court judgments. If you know that the judge does not have a good track record, there are some conflict of interest. That judgment that comes, even if it is legally correct, actually will suffer. Correct? No? You understand what I'm saying? So if there are 3 judges, we have to rule on a matter. All 3 of us have some problems. I have some financial interests that are under investigation. The other judge has family problems. Children are involved in some issues. So the other judge has political connections. But we are highly qualified judges. We have experience. But along the way, we have taken on some financial interests. Our family members are involved, politics happen. But we're highly qualified, experienced judges. So you can't question our experience. And the final judgment we gave on that case is actually very good judgment. It is very sound. We have gone through the laws properly. We've applied our mind. But still in the mind, people Camera also. Please continue. Yes. I have to share screen. When you share the screen, this screen is not there. Which will already done. Right, yeah. Please excuse the interruption. I was talking about the importance of. I got a good break too. Yeah. So I was talking about the importance of credibility when it comes to judgments, constitutions. Those delivering the judgment, even if they're doing a good job, have to have the credibility. Because those who lose out will question why is that judge in this case in the first place. So this process had that problem. The Constitutional Convention the credibility of those drafting the constitution suffered because of the left-wing tilt. And there were other reasons such as the unpopularity of the current left-wing president, Gabriel Boric. Since he is a left-winger, his unpopularity reflected in the work in the final draft. And so those, by the time the draft was submitted for vote, the president had changed and it was left-winger in place and he had become unpopular for a host of reasons. Those unpopular decisions weighed on the people's mind when they voted for the draft. So without looking at the content as such, there were many Chileans who voted against it. So for reasons such as political inclination, unpopularity of the current president, Gabriel Boric, very young man, hardly 40 years old. And there were a lot of violent crimes that had, the rise of violent crimes in Chile was exponential. All this led to the unpopularity of this man and subsequently the draft. So an unpopular man holding up a good product might still, the product might still get rejected. You know, the salesman has to have some credibility. Judges, salesmen, politicians, they all have to have credibility, even if they, in order for their product to have acceptability. So this suffered, and the older conservative segments of Chile did not like this draft. They thought that this was too revolutionary. It brought about a lot of new cutting-edge concepts into it, and so they didn't like it. But what were those cutting-edge concepts? So even though this is a rejected draft, the constitution stands rejected. Let us look at what these revolutionary aspects were, because in the coming years, more and more constitutions will have these elements in them. Maybe even India's constitution, for the moment, it does not. But let's hope that our constitution picks up some of these elements. What are these elements? A fresh, bold constitution put forth by the Chileans. The now revised 2022 constitution brought about revolutionary changes in the understanding of fundamental rights. Right to progressive autonomy of children and adolescents. What does that mean? That means as parents, you let your children grow in their own pace. You don't force things. By forcing children to grow in the way you want, beyond a certain limit, you are inhibiting their natural growth, and that's their fundamental right. This is unheard of. This is a truly progressive measure. Respect for neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity? Different people have different behavioral traits. You know, the words like neurodiversity doesn't even come in any constitution. But the Chileans have understood this and put it through. Neurodiversity is, you know, behavioral traits. If I give examples, some may not like examples that may be put forth, but you notice people around. That is not a problematic thing. It's just a personality thing. But conservative societies tend to mold people in the same behavioral trait. This should be discouraged because this goes against the individual personality, individual human right of the individual, of any individual, and it also goes against the natural flowering of talent of individuals. So you should allow them to have neurodiversity, that is different behavioral traits. Behavioral traits that are not antisocial, it does not hurt other people, but are still acceptable, right? The most basic example would be a left-handed person. Not all children are encouraged to be left-handed. Once parents realize they're left-handed, there are quite a number of them who go to extraordinary lengths to make them right-handed, because they see that as an anomaly. There's a stigma and prejudice against being left-handed. So behavioral traits, the diversity in behavioral traits, personality traits should be respected. Remarkable thing to put in a constitution. Right to indigenous consent. This is for the local people, the natives. Right to privacy. We are now coming to the issues of privacy in India also. There are some Supreme Court judgments delivered on why privacy is important. Data privacy, bodily, physical privacy, spatial privacy, all of them are now being dealt with in India also. So in that sense, on this matter, we are with the Chileans. Right to digital connectivity, computer security, digital space, free of violence for children in the education space. So you see how remarkable these things are. Do you hear this even, not just constitution, but even as a law, we don't have this simple law you pass quickly for data protection. It's been so difficult to exercise in India. We have had all kinds of vested interests talking about it, against it. We can't even, privacy has taken so many years to define. The Supreme Court has defined it, but the people will take several generations to understand and absorb. Just because the Supreme Court said it doesn't mean the people understand it. That transition will take time. So you see how far ahead the Chileans were. Privacy, personal data protection, digital connectivity, and healthy and balanced environment. Now, again, environment issues don't usually reflect in constitutions of our time, the 40s, 50s, 60s, because it was not a threatened entity. Climate change was unheard of. So people took environment for granted. But today we know we are at throes of an environmental disaster, global warming, and even on a daily basis on our streets. So noise pollution, soil pollution, air pollution. So healthy and balanced environment getting prime position in the Chilean draft. So these are things that need to be appreciated and hopefully will inspire countries around the world to take from. You would look up to not the American Constitution, not to the Japanese Constitution, but the Chilean Constitution. In South America, a Spanish-speaking country, showing the way to other countries. So what's in it for us? I'd like to conclude with this. Why are we Indians talking about this, spending our weekend afternoon? One, because of the evolutionary nature. We should be asking why we don't have this in our own country. If not in our constitution, at least it's a law, as a Supreme Court judgment, right? So we should not take our current constitutional order for granted. Just because it has lasted for 75 years, from 1950 onwards, doesn't mean it will last for another 75 years, or it is going to be progressive enough for us to progress. We have to constantly manage it, update it, remove old parts that are not necessary, add new things, and make it a thriving constitutional order that will carry all parts of this country together, regionally, socially. We have to. So the egalitarian spirit, egalitarian is a sense of equality that is inbuilt in our constitution, should be applicable every day. It should not just be on paper, but we should see that visible in our actions. And in order to make things more egalitarian, we need to pick up, literally copy paste some of those into our constitution. So we Indians don't take our current order for granted and keep it cutting edge as much as possible by looking at the Chileans to start with. So India, the world's biggest democracy, must absorb the positive highlights of the Chilean endeavor and strive to become more progressive in fine-tuning our democracy. This is not just a political objective, but social, economic, culture, and all aspects will be impacted. Those with respect to digital connectivity, data protection, that's truly personal, isn't it? You wouldn't want anyone to know that you're watching this presentation on Zoom on your phones. So constitutional order has to do that for us. So it has done a lot for us, but it needs to do a lot more. And how to do it? Look at the Chileans, and therefore the presentation. Now, with respect to trade, you see, India-Chile trade relations currently stands at $1.5 billion. That's not much, but the current crisis has impacted this. It's created uncertainty in the minds of Indians and Chileans. That's taken, pandemic also hit at the same time. So India-Chile economic relations need to come back to shape. And all of us who are watching Latin America, learning Spanish, not watching Latin America maybe, but learning Spanish, who have a stake in Chile and other countries. I chose Chile because of the constitutional order business, but otherwise South America in general must try looking for opportunities, keeping all this in mind, that there is something there in it for us, and then there is something that we can give to the Chileans and the other South Americans while we work with them. So while economic relations comes back to shape, thanks largely to mining. Chile is a mining superpower. They have lithium mines coming up everywhere in the north, the Atacama Desert area. We need it for pharmaceutical industry, electric vehicle industry. So Chile has a lot that it can offer us, including a few fundamental rights, very nicely put in a draft. Let's hope that the economy is back in shape in Chile. We can trade with them much stronger. And lastly, that they do ultimately get a good constitution, after all, that is suitable for the 21st century and acts as a role model for everybody around the world. Gracias.
Stop screen share and then take questions. Yeah, you can move it.
Okay, only I'm visible. Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
So, it was a very lovely lecture from you. Latin American countries. It's good come to know about the Chilean government and their problem. My question is very simple. Maybe I have not heard it or not read it. Why Chilean people are asking for the new constitution? What is their problem with the existing constitution? And why they are dissatisfied with the current constitution and what they are asking for? So this is my first question. And second is that lot of unrest is there in the Chilean to change the constitution. And so there is one term called Connecticut Compromise. So what does it mean?
Connecticut or Connecticut?
Why something is
In American history.
Chilean this constitution. So what do you mean by this Connecticut or Connecticut Compromise? So main thing is that I want to know the changes, why they want to change their constitution, what is the existing problem right now?
I'll come back to the slides that I'd used some slides where I listed the problems.
And what changes they want to make in their constitution?
Yeah. Right. Now, the current constitution, the 1980 constitution, which was a result of Augusto Pinochet's coup in 1973, the 1980 constitution has been amended significantly. 60% of the content of that constitution is now different. This is, yeah, I was coming to that. The significant amendments relate to personal laws, women, minorities, social issues. That was the biggest setback that the constitutional order faced when Pinochet came to power through a coup. It was a social and that impact on economic issues. Social, economic, very strongly tied to each other. The huge setbacks in those two fields were corrected by a lot of presidents in the last 25 years. The significant one being Michelle Bachelet. She was the left-wing liberal president of Chile for 2 terms. She then went on to work for the United Nations. So she's a senior statesman for the entire world. She significantly brought about laws that reversed the Pinochet era socio-liberal, socio-political regime. So because of those reversals, that constitution doesn't smell as bad as it originally did. the remaining 40% that has not been changed are necessary requirements, or there has been no consensus to remove it. So they have managed with that. So the 1980 constitution, one must remember, has undergone significant changes. That is why it has been possible to put up with it for this long. The significant ones being Michelle Bachelet. She played a significant role. It had to be left-wing presidents because the military juntas, military regimes are usually conservative, autocratic regimes. Most of their policies will seem right-wing. Therefore, it always takes a left-wing, progressive, liberal-minded politician to reverse, not just in Chile, in most countries of the world. And Chile is no different. So Michelle Bachelet had a very important role. Because of those changes, Chile went on to become a little more progressive, more egalitarian, more stable. But still, what happened was, despite the changes, fundamentally things, see, the word here is fundamental. I use that word in my slide. So shaken Chile at a fundamental level that an entire constitution was felt necessary. You can change a lot of laws. You can bring in norms and make in rules. But fundamental level, if things don't change, then the frustration builds up. That is what happened. Even though the likes of Michelle Bachelet brought about a lot of worthy changes, it was not good enough. It did not add up enough. That is what all accumulated and broke up in the civil unrest. Economic problems, social problems, mainly for the indigenous people. The Mapuche, the Aymara, and the other groups felt that how much ever growth was happening, Chile, how much ever HDI was improving, how much ever laws were being progressively changed from the Pinochet era, the changes were being made. They were not getting enough because structurally they were simply not represented. They did not have enough education and social capital to benefit from those reversals. So fundamental changes were not good enough. So, like for example, yes, food education. No, I mean by fundamental, I mean all sections of the society having the capacity to absorb it. Let us assume I feed all of you. 3 meals I give you. Okay, I'm a dictator. I stop giving you meals. I give you only 1 meal. I give you only 1 meal. You don't like me, of course. We are dictators. We do what we want. But then slowly I go out of the picture. Liberal politicians come like Michelle Bachelet. She liberalizes things. No, let's all if you take 2 meals, not 1, 2. He was giving you only 1. I will give you 2. I will make things really better. But the 3rd meal, you should get by earning. You should work and earn. Government can't give you just like that. But to work and earn, not all of you are educated enough. Not all of you are healthy enough. So only those capable of working, earning through their education will come and get the 3rd meal and go. So researchers will come and say, oh, wow, Chile's condition has improved. Half the class is now earning the 3rd meal also. But the other half is still frustrated. Because the Mapuche, if you're indigenous people, you don't have the education. You don't have the social capital. That private industry is not controlled by you indigenous people. It's the mestizos and the whites who are doing it. So changes are happening. Growth is there and all that. But there's a significant session. So you want a change wherein, you get that representation. You get that job so that you can also work and earn the 3rd meal. Now, even if you're willing to work, you can't work. Charity, only 2 meals you will get. The 3rd meal, the others have run away with. All the indigenous people are crying. So it is the indigenous people, the Mapuches and the Aymara, who were at the forefront of the civil unrest. Not the well-off who had everything, who somehow managed to come back together after the restoration of democracy. Constitution was not changed. The same Constitution 1980 was amended to make it look more democratic. But the fruits of democracy were not coming to everybody. The women of, yes, egalitarian.
Fundamental things are lacking there. Education.
Yes, for generations you had the indigenous did not get education, did not get healthcare. You did not even live long enough. So the others are not just getting an extra meal, they are also living long enough because of good health. It is democratic. It's all relative. Chile is still far better off than many countries in the Western Hemisphere. It is still better off than large number of African countries. It's still better off than many Asian countries. So it's still better off. But when you start focusing only on Chile, the problems start coming up. You may be better than them, but you still have all these problems. So we are trying to. Which one? Chile is a democratic country because there are still shortcomings and protesting. So the people decide whether they're happy or not. If you're not getting 3 meals, what is use of me comparing you to some African country? You're still hungry the third time. You will protest. So these comparisons are very academic in nature, you see. But ultimately, people protest for their rights. They look at the inequality in their surroundings. Correct. So it all boiled up. It all came together. The progress made after 1980 in reversing the Pinochet era order was not fast enough. That changes was not deep enough. It did not go deep enough. Half of them benefit, half of them still suffer. So you're still struggling. So the progress was not fast enough, deep enough. The frustration boiled over. It got mixed with COVID feelings, COVID hardship, and it was time now. So the politicians, the ruling class, realized that this won't change by making another change to the constitution, another law, another throwing money like this. It has to fundamentally change. We need to bring these people up, recognize new things that are shaping our society, like digital connectivity, the new forces that are shaping our society. We have to start being more careful about environment. So a lot of fundamental things had to change. It can't be you form the laws, new laws, but they're still exploiting the environment the same way they did. You know, your new laws cannot exploit the environment like old laws. What's the difference then? You know, so fundamentally it had to change. New things, new ideas, bring people up.
Your opinion, what do you think is how this situation can be improved? What the government should do to your opinion, not what the book.
Yes, my opinion is, you see, that's why I took a lot of effort to give that example of, yes, sir. Let me finish this. That's why I took so much trouble to give that example of judges. You see, 3 judges have given you a judgment. The judgment is actually valid, but the judges don't have credibility. One person has some scandal involved, the other person's children is involved in some politics. The judges don't have credibility, but they're actually giving you a good judgment. How to solve the problem? Keep the judgment, get it delivered through a new set of judges. That's the only way. If teachers lose credibility in a classroom, judges lose credibility. Salesmen, marketing people lose credibility in a society. I know your soap product is good. Yes, personality problem, legitimacy issue. So how to solve this problem? The draft is excellent, pretty much excellent. They're going through the motion again, but it will again come up with this pretty much the same draft. The President Boric, the current president, must sit down with right-wingers and come up with a process that does not seem too left-wing or right-wing. Improve the credibility and deliver the same constitution. Yes. Country, yes. So again, that example of judges, the judgment is good. Even if you give it to some other court, they will give same judgment. But the judges had no credibility. So change the judges, put some other bench of the same court and give the same judgment. So improve the credibility of the process. So that something similar is happening here. So I don't believe your salesmanship, but the product is good. So your company will send another salesman to sell the same product. I will buy it. The product is good. So it's a salesman problem, judges problem, politicians problem. So improve the credibility, the legitimacy, the rest will take care. This happens in life. Credibility, legitimacy is very crucial. Reputations are crucial. Life doesn't go forward. So you have to change the Chilean, the current president Boric has to be like a statesman. He's a young man relatively, but he should be like a statesman, bring the political angles to the extremes together and tell the people, educate the people that this is not about politics. You're voting on constitution. It's like building a house. We'll fight over interior decoration. We'll fight over paint color, but let's not fight over the house. Let's build this house first. Correct? No, that's a fundamental thing. So this point has to be communicated by everybody, left, right, together, and tell the people that vote only on constitution. Don't mix up other issues. like inflation, violence, etc. This is very difficult, but the politicians have to do it. That's leadership. That's leadership. And so by improving the credibility of the process, they'll get it. But the draft wise, this is an outstanding draft. Yeah.
Now I think you have audience connected online.
Yeah, okay.
We can ask them.
He had a question.
Yes, sir. So now the military reform is completely ended and it's a democratic country right now. China. So what are the difficulties they are facing right now in China? Not in a way of environmental issues, but in a social way.
Chile, yes. So even if you're saying that even though Chile has become democratic, relatively more democratic, Chile has become, what are the problems that they continue to face? Socially, the biggest problem is inequality. This mestizo white majority, and the 90% mestizos are, as I said, interbred. When the European colonizers interbred with the local, the mestizos, they're like Anglo-Indians, 40% of the Chilean population, rest are European descendants, together 90%. That and indigenous population. This is the biggest divide in Chile. And this was a very big issue when Chile expanded. Chile started off as a small country, and then it expanded like this and became a very narrow, long country. Even while expanding, the wars between the whites and the native people was very severe. It took several decades to suppress the indigenous people, make them part of Chile. So there's a lot of this historical bitterness also. So this white indigenous people divide, Adivasis in India. Yes. So this divide between the white Adiva and the Adivasis of Chile, to just make it clear, that is the biggest issue. That impacts everything: politics, economy, protests. When everybody's protesting, them significant numbers are native people. So when the police shoot, they're the majority who get killed, not the whites. Even though they're only 10% of the population, they're the most protesting. Everywhere there is this divide. So yeah, this is the biggest thing. This has to be taken care. It should have been taken care of by now. But this is what happens when military coup happens, and a lot of things get shoved to the corners, and the mainstream thinking gets affected. It becomes less progressive. And so you have the women suffer, the indigenous people suffer, all the other minorities suffer. That's typically how it is in most countries. In Chile is no different.
How can the socio-economic problems be solved?
Audience can ask the same thing. Any questions for me? You can stop sharing your screen. They will be able to see.
Right. Audience, it's now well over an hour since we began. I've had a good time with the audience here in the Institute. Does anybody who's logged into Zoom online have any question for me based on the presentation?
Yes, hi, sir. This is Praveen here. One question. The GDP.
Introduction, sir.
Hi, I'm Praveen. I'm from Bengaluru itself. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, go on.
Okay, my question is, the per capita GDP is roughly 16,500 USD, and it is growing at around roughly 12 years year on year, which is one of the highest actually. And it's a democratic government in place. So the inequality is between. Is that all the resources are skewed towards the whites and the rest are deprived of it?
Yes, sir. That is the single biggest problem. That is single biggest socio-economic problem of Chile today. It impacts everything. And a gentleman here in the institute was asking a similar question, and it comes down to that.
Yeah. So they follow the current constitution, which is in place right now, isn't it? So the new one is not adopted. They go with the current one, which has been there, right?
Yes, the current one in force is the 1980 constitution brought forth by the military regime.
Right.
The
all this draft that had been negotiated was rejected by 62% of Chileans, not 50, 51, 52, 62%. It's a very, very strong rejection, which the politicians will have to think and overcome.
Right.
But the rejection should not stop us from understanding what is good in that for us.
Right. In spite of all this, 2021 had the highest GDP for Chile, which is roughly 350 odd billion. What do you think is the reason for that, in spite of all this happening?
Which year did you say, sir? 2020?
2021.
Despite the pandemic, or this is before the pandemic?
No, 2021 is middle of the pandemic. In spite of all these unrest, everything happening, Chile had the highest GDP of roughly 320 billion in 2021. That is the highest ever. So why do you think it has happened?
It is largely driven by mining, which did not come to an end even during the pandemic, because some of the mining elements that are mined in Chile are useful to a whole range of industries, including the pharmaceutical ingredients. So the Bolivians, the Chileans, and the Argentinians made a lot of good money from mining even during the pandemic. So there was no reason to shut that down, especially with the pharmaceutical angle to it. But again, the numbers that you are saying, 300 billion, 17,000 per capita, I had put that in my presentation initially. And I had said that this is a very wonderful picture. I agree with what you're saying. It's a very rosy picture, but no equality. Egalitarian spirit is not there.
It's heavily skewed towards a minority.
And it will disturb everything in the long run. That means your fundamentals are not strong. Your fundamentals are not strong. It's like having a weak foundation, but nice decoration is there, interior painting is there, but your foundation is not strong. At some point, your building will have problems.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen.
May I present one question?
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I am Kaushik. I am currently a student of the institute. I am currently in B1.1 level of Spanish. So it was a very nice presentation, sir. I appreciate it highly. So my question to you is the youth of Chile currently more inclined towards communism and Marxism? Because I have seen several videos where the youth is like flashing communist symbols, and so my question is this: is the Chilean youth society more inclined towards Marxism?
It's sorry, your name, sir, again? Kaushik.
Kaushik, yes, sir.
Kaushik ji, yeah, Mr. Kaushik, I find it hard to paint that picture in general. The current president, left-wing president Gabriel Boric, was certainly very popular. He was young. He 35 years or approximately when he contested for the presidency. He ran on a platform that had a lot of. He's a millennial, the first millennial to become Chile's president. Millennials are those who grew up before the year 2000. They attained adolescence. So he belongs to that generation, the first from that generation to become Chile's president. So he drew the youth. It was more Boric's personality and popularity and charisma as opposed to any general trend. Because if you say that youth are becoming more communistic, there has to be ideological reasons. All those youth must understand what communism is. They must have gone through material and literature. That is certainly not the trend in Chile. It's an incidental thing that a young left-wing politician rose up, and circumstances favored him because his predecessors were right-wing, and President Boric won the election. So I wouldn't paint a general picture saying youth are communistic in Chile, but at the moment they are very happy with Boric, except of course some of those problems which he has to address. Otherwise he will lose power.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
I invite Mr. Ranjit to add his point.
Mr. Kaushik.
Yes.
I would like to add a few points to Vinay's question, because you asked about the youth of Chile.
Right.
So the unrest that was there in the year 2019 and it continued till the pandemic, it was the result of the protests done by the university students. So the current generation of the government that Chile has, I can say that there are many women in the government, and there are many young people who are less than 40 years old.
Correct.
Boric himself is approximately 36 or 35, 37 now. And other young politicians like Camila Vallejo, if you know this, Google this name. She was a lady who was a university student during and leading the protests in the year 2019 in the when this protest started on the issue of a metro fare hike, but it also it continued, and the issues were also connected with the economic conditions of people and the rising cost of education. These people actually protested and asked the university education to be free. So they asked the government to make the education free because the fee were very high, and Chileans used to take loan, and they, I think, still take loans, and those rate of interests are very high. This has a root in the neoliberal policy framed by the Pinochet, and you can also Google one term called Chicago Boys. The rich people who studied master MBA courses in the United States, they came back to the country and took over the government, and they framed the policies in favor of the rich people.
Like they supported capitalism, the capitalistic framework of the economy.
Yes, this is an ideological thing where they feel that the capitalist way, neoliberal way of economy is the best form of economy, where the survival, whoever is fit will survive, and remaining, they call that lazy people do not have any right to wealth. For example, right to education, right to transport, and basic requirements. Coming back to the question that you are asking about is the majority of the Chileans leftists or communists?
That is how I feel actually.
You know that in literature, when you read people like Neruda, Nicanor Parra, and in art, when we talk about Nueva Canción Chilena, where Violeta Parra, Victor Zara, and many such people were the activists, very bright people were the activists from the left background. They were Marxists. And also because the elected president, Salvador Allende was killed by the Pinochet regime in 1973 on 11th September, the other September 11 that the world doesn't know about and doesn't talk about. So these are the factors where there is a lot of sympathy for the left and communist people in Chile. And that is the reason why this young generation of the leftists are in power today.
Exactly, sir. Yes, that is exactly how I feel. And so I wanted to know more broadly about it, understand it more broadly. So thank you for explaining it so nicely. So
thank you. Thank you so much. If Mr. Vinay, if there are more questions, we will take one or two, and then we will finish the session. And
Praveen here, one more, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I have one point that on our Facebook page of the Institute, we have a video that we did Facebook Live during the pandemic, when this constitution was not put to the vote and it was not rejected. This presentation was done by our teacher, Carla Loreto. This presentation is still there. where she gives you the background, the historical background of Chile, the neoliberal things that I'm talking about, the Chicago Boys, and the university protests that were happening during 2019. Please go through that on the page, on the Facebook page of the Institute. You will find this video, and the topic is art and social protests in Chile.
Right, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Sure, sir.
Right, sir. Thank. Yeah. Yes, sir. Bataiye.
Sir, thank you so much for there is a new draft expected. Another, when you are talking about lithium industry, etc. So what I know that lithium fields are monopoly of Chinese companies. So I wanted to know, is there any Indian company operating over there in lithium?
With regard to the new draft, the date is not clear. It's an ongoing process. A lot of hurdles must be overcome. So there is no set date as to when we can see this draft taken up. We'll have to watch the space and hope for the best that the constitution does come through. With regards to China, China is a hub, but it's called the lithium triangle: Chile, Bolivia, Argentina. So these three countries are also constitute a hub. So the Chinese are there, players, no doubt, but so are these three countries in South America. The United States has significant reserves, and now India, of course, claims that J&K, yes, J&K, they have found reserves, but operational ones that you can mine, send, process, and quickly use. These three South American countries are far ahead. So the entire supply chain. So they will continue to maintain that lead, and they'll continue to make good use of it. But of course, with respect to the Indian company, well, if you look at the Jammu Kashmir lithium finds, that has been done by the public sector. No private company was involved. Even in Mandya district here in Karnataka, there are some reserves of lithium that have been found. It's all government enterprise, government reports, and government has not been mining for lithium from few years ago when electric vehicles came to the picture. Geological studies are done by government bodies for several decades. They keep doing it and they keep filing reports. It means nothing, but suddenly after many decades, that old report becomes relevant. 20 years ago, what did the government say on lithium reserves in India? That report has suddenly become relevant after Jammu Kashmir find. So it's mostly a government enterprise. There's been no Indian, the lithium finds in India have not gone as far as making themselves commercially useful as yet. It will take some time to mine, process, find markets. Again, are you talking about the pharmaceutical market, the semiconductor market, the electrical vehicle market? Where will your processing be done? Where will your government allow you to do? So private companies are not in the picture yet in India. Private companies, you hear of private companies, they're recipients of raw materials somewhere else. If I'm running a pharmaceutical company, my tablets have some lithium content. I'm getting them from where and then selling you those tablets. I could be an agent somewhere in between, but I'm not doing the actual mining and processing. No Indian company is doing that yet. Yeah. New draft, Boric's talent will be tested, President Boric.
Take place in the month of May.
The new draft.
The campaigning is going on.
This is not the new draft itself. Not for the draft.
These are campaigning for their candidates to include their
names. Oh, okay. So I was not updated then. Constituent convention, second attempt, May this year. But again, you see, democracy, this is the thing. Last time also very democratic. But then they had a problem that it was too left-wing. What can you do? So the politicians before the Constituent Convention have to sit down and decide that let's make this in such a way that people don't reject again based on ideological grounds. So that's the problem. This is a political exercise. It doesn't have to be 100% democratic. Because last time it was democratic and the same people said, no, too left wing, we will not vote for the final draft. Conflicting, but every step of the way the people voted with overwhelming majority. So it's not always about being 100% democratic. You need to get that adjustment in place so that you don't reject it for non-content reasons.
There is a draft will be there, they will able to execute.
Correct.
Ideological fight is there.
Ideological fight. Yeah, but it,
I think my analysis that the constitution will pass this law.
correct. It will jam the process. Oh, but this happened in Nepal also. After the Maoists were brought to the mainstream, Mr. Prachanda, who's our JNU alumnus, he was leading the Maoists in Nepal. All the political parties, Maoists, India was intervening, United Nations was intervening, every country was trying to intervene. It became such a long drawn process, painful. The Nepal democratic process was far more painful than Chile's. So every step of the way, every line became controversial, held back. So Chile has actually done quite well. When they've rejected outright. Now you can start again, So it's still a good role model, Chile's process. That's why,
So if we don't have any further questions, we have some snacks. We can
only one small
One last question. Sorry, sir. This is Praveen here. If the current rejection by the people for most of the reforms is suggested in the new draft, then that might have an impact on the next election and the political career of Boric, isn't it? So probably he might try to bring an end to this before the next term before the next elections are declared, right? Don't you think so? Or it won't have any impact?
Well, you're right in the sense that President Boric has a very strong incentive to get this process done so that he gets re-elected.
Exactly.
And this becomes his legacy. See, politicians at that level care about legacy. So Boric wants his legacy to be a millennial young man, first millennial president, to be a brand new constitution. Nothing can be greater than that.
Yep.
So he will definitely try hard to get this through during his present term. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen.
Thank you. Your presentation was very informative. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ranj.
Compromise respective of Chilean constitution.
that could be Connecticut, right?
Connecticut compromise.
But which year is this? I know it with respect to the American constitution process, but in Chile, I'm not aware. I'll have to connect. There is a Connecticut compromise with respect to the US, but with respect. No, that you see in the US case, I'll tell you the US case where I'm much more better aware of. Yes, but some of that term. Okay, but that term doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry, but we can come back to it later. But with respect to Connecticut, you see this Connecticut compromise and all with respect to constitutional order. Important questions like, say, slavery. As American colonies expanded from east to west, more American states got added, United States. So some wanted slavery, some did not want slavery. So slavery was lucrative here, slavery was not lucrative here. So as you grow as a country, you have to make compromises. Correct? You have to make compromises on a lot of issues. Otherwise, how will you go forward? Fundamental issue like slavery, it affects everything. Economy, social fabric, so education. Therefore, the American constitutional order is littered with compromises on slavery issue. But of course, in the end, no compromise worked. It all collapsed. Civil war happened. Abraham Lincoln, after the end of the Civil War, emancipated all the slaves. But until that point came, it's like you're fighting, keep compromising, one final day, it all collapses. Sometimes it should collapse, but compromise help you stretch the things up to a point until the conflict is inevitable, or you just don't want to think about it. So So the compromise you're mentioning, Chile, will something be similar. It will be have to do with expansion of Chile, the social character of Chile, the powers of the president or the Roman Catholic Church. How do you decide how much power should have? On these key questions, these compromises will be woven. Thank you, Mr. Ranjit Kumar, for this opportunity. In trying to help make you aware of this process, I've made myself a lot more aware of Chile. Because I should say, I was pandemic gave us all a break. Yeah.
Basically, it's nice.
Thank you.
It throw more light on the Chilean constitution, the current situation of this. So it's a very knowledgeable lecture.
Thank you. And it's been knowledgeable for me as well. The research part, the presentation, the questions. I needed this refresh after a few years of break from the MEA. So thank you all. Thank you, gracias. And I hope to see you all again.
Thank you.
Just say to our audience. So on behalf of the Institute, again, I thank you everyone who joined online and also who came to the Institute in person, and to our esteemed colleague and friend, Mr. Vinay, who took this time to and agreed for this presentation. So we are very glad that we are able to continue this intellectual journey while learning Spanish and knowing more about the people, their politics, their constitution, and every aspect of the language teaching that we have, or that is our responsibility also. Not language, you cannot learn a language only for the sake of communication. And the content of that communication must definitely come from all the aspects of the people's life, that the people who speak the language. So regarding Chile, I think I would like to tell many people who are learning Spanish that the Institute helps many businessmen, many companies from Chile, and Chilean economy and Indian economy both are collaborating with each other. They are very close economic ties that we have. I do some of the interpretations for some of the people, individual people, and also for the government bodies like ENAP, that is the energy company of Chile, and many companies like I can say that there is a company called Falabella. They are present here in Bangalore, and many Chilean companies are doing business with India, and they require interpreters, translators, and Spanish-speaking people. So in Latin America, I feel that Chile may be number 2 or number 3 in terms of collaborating with the Indian people, and also in pharma industry where Praveen Bose, our student Praveen Bose works. There are many pharma companies from India are doing business with Chile, and the ISP, that is called Instituto de Salud Public. They come to India for doing audits and approving the pharma companies for accepting their medicines in the Chilean market. So there is a significant opportunity for all of us who are learning Spanish in the Chilean market and in the Chilean economy. And we have a lot to collaborate with each other in terms of business and also all other aspects of the human life. Thank you so much. With these words, I declare concluded this session concluded. And in case you have any further query or anything for Mr. Vinay, you can send me. I will ask those questions, and again, maybe offline or online, we will invite him to take up those questions. Thank you so much. for
Thanks,
joining.
Ranjit, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vinay, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So from the institutes and we are just saying thank you to you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Gracias. Abhi ke liye you can. We end this? And here.